Today, I would like to talk about respecting Sabbath services. To start, if y'all will please take your Bibles and turn to Hebrews 10:24. Again, that's Hebrews 10:24. And we're going to read through verse 25. It says, "And let us consider one another in order to stir up love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is the manner of some, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as you see the day approaching." Oftentimes, you'll see the beginning of verse 25 here shortened to "not forsaking the assembly." That's what we're going to talk about today, not forsaking the assembly. I have 3 points about how we can make sure not to fall into easy traps to forsake the assembly. Our first point is going to be stop your phone from being a distraction. I am using a phone right now on the podium to time me. Phones are great. They let us communicate, and they're also great tools. But they can also be great distractions. Now, there are obviously reasons someone may have to use a phone at church. Maybe you're getting an emergency phone call that you know you need to take because it could be important. Maybe you're on the sound crew and somebody texted you that something might be broken. Or maybe even the speaker is making a reference to something that it may be easier for you to visualize by Googling a picture. And there are surely other reasons that you may need to use your phone at church. Most commonly, if you see someone on their phone at church, they're probably just taking their notes on it. And that's absolutely okay. I take my personal notes on a laptop. I find it easier to organize, and I find that I type faster than I write. But if we're going to decide to use our phones or a laptop or a tablet to take notes at church, you have to have self-control. It's very, very easy to be typing your notes up on your phone, and then all of a sudden you see a text message that probably could wait, or a notification that certainly could wait, and the next thing you know, you've spent 5 minutes during the middle of the sermon scrolling on your phone. And that's not okay. God commands us not only to attend church, but to take part in services. And like I said, there are certainly exceptions, but whether it be texting that could wait, scrolling on social media, or even playing games on your phone during church because, well, this message might not apply to me, the reality is doing things like that are disrespectful to services and disrespectful to God. A simple, easy way to prevent this is to just turn your phone off or turn your phone on Do Not Disturb. The second thing we need to do to avoid traps is understand what our attendance means. Our presence in the congregation is an expression of our devotion and commitment to God's community. Hebrews 10:25 emphasizes the importance of not forsaking the assembly. It highlights our responsibility to encourage and uplift one another. Not only is our attendance an expression of our devotion, but in reality, in Exodus 20, verse 8, and we won't turn there for the sake of time, but God commands us to keep his Sabbath holy. Now, once again, we need to be clear that there are exceptions. Maybe you're sick. Maybe it's a longer journey than most for you, and you simply can't afford to make it. Or maybe you even have a once-in-a-lifetime event that happens to fall on the Sabbath, like a graduation or a wedding. And there are certainly plenty of other reasons you might miss Sabbath services. And we may notice when people miss Sabbath services. Sometimes it's a smaller congregation, and you notice when people aren't there. And that's okay. But we also have to understand it's not you or I's place to start questioning people why they weren't at church every single week. If we ask and they say, oh, kids were sick or something, I just couldn't make it, that's okay. But if we notice that they might be uncomfortable about it, it might not be you or I's place to start pushing further to ask and basically interview them as to why they weren't at church. Ultimately, it comes down to being in between that person and God. However, do we treat the second services on holy days with the same respect as we do the Sabbath? Statistically speaking, we do not. Routinely, PM service declines by approximately a third. And yes, when PM services on a holy day happen, there become even more legitimate reasons someone might not be able to make it. Oftentimes, holy day services are hosted at a separate location. It may be a farther drive. You may be in the situation that it's a much farther drive, and you would have to drive at night, and that's not something you're comfortable with. And that's absolutely okay. Some people may have a medical reason that they can't be gone away from home all day. And that's, once again, completely okay. However, unfortunately, the reality is some feel like attending one service has met their quote-unquote obligation and that they can just simply go home and relax. And while, yes, the holy day was made for rest, its primary purpose is to worship God. If we choose to skip the second service simply as a matter of convenience or because we are quote-unquote tired, are we forsaking the assembly? Oftentimes, all too often, our excuses become our habits. Also, oftentimes, we can justify anything we want. Sometimes, you can start to look for an excuse to find for why you can't come to second services, and it's not too hard to find one often. The reality is, yes, second services is a larger commitment. It's oftentimes farther away, oftentimes a lot more travel to a different location we might not have been before, and sometimes it even ends up that we're in traffic at 5 p.m. on the highway. And at the end, it's a question that you and I have to ask ourselves. If you were standing in front of God right now, would you be able to justify to Him while you decided to skip the second service? And once again, it's not our place to harass people who don't come to the second service, but it's our place to just question ourselves about why we can't attend. Finally, we need to respect the work that makes church happen. First and foremost, we obviously come to church to honor and respect God. That's the primary reason we're here, and it always should be. But beyond that, do we consider the importance of respecting the people and the time that make church happen? Just like Hebrews 10:24 and 25 urges us not to forsake the assembling, it also reminds us to exhort one another. That includes respecting and appreciating those who labor among us. When we gather for Sabbath services, we are participating in a community-like effort. If you please turn to 1 Thessalonians 5:12. Again, that's 1 Thessalonians 5:12. And it says, "And we urge you, brethren, to recognize those who labor among you and are over you in the Lord and admonish you, and to esteem them very highly in love for their work's sakes. Be at peace among yourself." It takes a lot of work to set up Sabbath services. Whether it comes down to the actual renting of the hall, the managing of the church's money, the setup of the sound system, the setup of the webcast, the setup of the kitchen, making the snacks, eating the snacks, cleaning the building, setting up and tearing down chairs, or tearing down any of the other systems. And we also have to consider that oftentimes at the second services on holy days, there's even more work since we're at a secondary location. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of man hours that you may not see that go into prepping for church. And if we aren't respecting the man hours that are put in to set up church, are we forsaking the assembly? In conclusion, brethren, you and I need to honor Sabbath services. It's commanded of us. While we hopefully do our best to honor the Sabbath services, there are a few things that we need to watch out for so we don't fall into easy traps. First and foremost, we need to watch our phone usage during church. Phones are great tools, but you and I have to be wise and have self-control if we're going to use them during church for notes. Secondly, our attendance is a sign of respect to God. While, yes, you and I will certainly have things pop up that are legitimate reasons we cannot come to church or we might not be able to make the second service on a holy day, we have to make sure that we don't let not attending services become a habit. Finally, you and I have to respect and honor the work and man hours that go into setting up church. Not by giving the people who set up special treatment, but by realizing that if you and I decide to just not come to church because of an illegitimate reason, or skip the second service for an illegitimate reason, that you are disrespecting the time and effort of those who put so much into it to make church happen. And yes, while it's important that we recognize there are exceptions, even more importantly than the exceptions, it's important that we recognize that you and I are supposed to love one another. And it is not our place to go around accusing people of dishonoring the Sabbaths. It's our place to examine ourselves, take in messages and commands, and make sure that we are doing our best to honor and respect God's Sabbath.